Hello friends, and welcome back to the Mothership. Today we are smoking up our very own hero meat using ground brisket and lamb. Then we're going to make a pretty awesome tzatziki sauce. And to top it all off, we're going to make our very own gyros. Let's get started. Alright, first thing that we want to do is get together our dry seasoning. We're going to start with some kosher salt, some oregano, ground cumin, thyme, rosemary, and black pepper. Now, for our meat, what we want to do is use a mixture of ground lamb and ground beef. Like always, I have a ton of ground beef, so we are going to use about a pound of ground brisket. And then I'm also going to use a pound of ground lamb. Now what I'm going to do is add in my minced garlic, my onions, and all of my dried seasoning. And then I'm just going to get it loosely mixed together. Now the next step is optional, and it's actually going to dictate how much you mix everything together here. I'm going to use a food processor, and I do recommend it if you have one. It'll get you the consistency that you're looking for. It'll make it much closer to that traditional style of hero meat that we are looking for. If you don't have one, that's fine. I would definitely trim everything much thinner. So your onions, I would mince much further down than I have. Same with your garlic. And I would mix everything together much more. Since I'm going to pulse everything together, I just want to get a rough mixture. So we're just going to get a rough mixture here. Kind of get a good ratio out throughout. And then I'm going to start pulsing. Okay, that's a rough enough mixture. Now let's get my much too small food processor together, and we will pulse this in batches. Like I said, my food processor is far too small, and honestly, I need to get a bigger one. But what we're going to do is probably run in batches of maybe about a half pound. So I'll probably have to do about 4 of them to get this done. Anyway, I'm going to put everything into the food processor. Get it nice and filled in there. Throw the top on. And our result is kind of this type of paste, which is what we're really looking for. So I'm going to do all of my meat, and then we're going to put it into our container to let it sit overnight. Now there are a couple of ways that people go about making this next step, which is getting the loaf into its form. I've seen folks just kind of put it into saran wrap and then basically just roll it up like you would, I don't know, some sort of sausage. And then that makes like a round version, but I like to have a nice square loaf. So what I'm going to do is take a bread tin. I'm going to put, as you can see, some saran wrap over top, and then we're just going to plop all of our meat inside, then put the saran wrap over it so it has a nice square shape. Put it into the fridge overnight, let everything congeal together, and then hopefully when we pull it out, it'll retain that kind of rectangular shape, and it can go directly onto the smoker in that form, and it'll keep a nice square, and when we cut it, it will look beautiful. So what we're going to do is just take our mixture, which I have to say looks fairly unappetizing, but whatever. We're just going to put it in here. Kind of fill out the sides. Now, if we really want to make it very square, which I kind of want to do, I'm going to cover the top of this as well. And then we're going to take another tin and just push it on top. That's going to make it obviously fill into all the cracks and make it very rectangular and very even. So, now that I've filled out this pretty flat, I'm going to take my gloves off. I'm going to take another layer of saran wrap, cover the top like so. I'm going to take another bread loaf and just kind of push it down. This one's obviously smaller, but I want to kind of make it flat. So just kind of push it until I kind of feel that it's evened out in there. I don't want to condense it too hard. That will not be good. We don't want it to be a rock. We want some air in there. I just want it to be in a square shape. That looks pretty good to me. Kind of like a fruitcake type thing. And now I'm just going to take this and put it in the fridge. It's going to let all the meat kind of re-adhere to itself. And when we finally pull it out to put it on the smoker, hopefully it will retain its shape and be perfect. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Okay, it is 24 hours later, and I actually just got the smoker fired up. I am going to start cooking this sucker at about 180 degrees. It's entirely not necessary. You could do it at a higher temperature, but since I'm going to smoke it on my pellet smoker, most of the smoke I'm going to get is on that lower end. And since I'm using brisket, it can stand a low and slow cook pretty well. So you could absolutely cook this whole thing at like 250, 300 degrees if you want. I'm going to start it, like I said, at 180, probably bump it up to 250 later on in the cook. But what I want to do is get this out of here and onto some peach paper. Now I'm using peach paper because I don't want it to fall through the cracks if for some reason this decides not to hold together. I think it will be just fine holding its shape, but this should give me a little bit of a less concern of it falling apart. Perfect. Doesn't that look frankly kind of disgusting? But I mean, this is the style we want, right? We want a big rectangle. So when we cut it, we can cut off nice slices and it'll look perfect. So what we're going to do is just put it on the smoker at 180 degrees for maybe 2 hours, and then we'll revisit. We've been on for about 2 hours, and our probe is showing about 135 degrees. At this point, what I'm going to do is bump the temperature up. My goal here really is to take it to temp at this point. There's nothing else we're going to do. Since I use brisket, I'm going to allow it to go a bit longer, probably 160, 165. If you used a leaner cut of beef, I would probably pull it maybe 145, and then with carryover, maybe get 150. So at this point, you can keep running at 180 if you really want to. You can bump it up to 250. I'm probably gonna go somewhere between 225 and 250 here. While we are waiting, it's time to whip up a tzatziki sauce. Now the process to make this is fairly straightforward, but there is one step that you gotta make sure you take care of. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna grate up our cucumbers. Now with our grated cucumber, we can't just put this into our bowl and mix everything together. We need to make sure we get the moisture out of it or it's gonna be way too sloppy. So what I'm gonna do is take this paper towel and just push it down, absorb as much liquid as I can, and then repeat with another paper towel until I get all of the excess moisture out of here. Now it's worth noting that a lot of people will peel their cucumbers before they make this. I don't think it's absolutely necessary, but quite often you will see them peeled first. The cucumber doesn't need to be bone dry, but we do want to have the excess moisture removed. I'm gonna mix it around a little bit, give it one more paper towel treatment, and then we should be ready to add in the rest of our ingredients. I'm first gonna go in with my cucumbers that we just ground up. Whole bunch of Greek yogurt. Any Greek yogurt will do. You can go fat-free, you can go 5% fat. Just make sure that it is not flavored, obviously. Add some lemon juice, olive oil, kosher salt, mint, dill, and some minced garlic. Then just give it a nice mixy, mixy, mixy. And a taste test. And this is ready to go into the fridge until we are ready to use it. I have an internal temperature of about 165. And it looks like it's time to pull it. So I'm gonna take this off. And at this point, you could probably wrap it in tinfoil until you actually wanna use it, or you could just cut right into it and make your gyros right now. But this is gonna come off and go inside. Our gyro meat is done. It has a nice red color. I bet you we have a really nice smoke ring in there. I put in some tinfoil and let it rest for at least half an hour, probably a little bit longer, just to let everything kind of recongeal, get all those flavors to mix together, you know, the usual. And I can't help myself, I gotta try it. The lamb and the brisket are great together, but what's really gonna make this good is have everything come together, including our tzatziki sauce, our pitas, and a little bit of tomato and some onions. So let's get all that together. Now before we assemble these gyros, guys, if you could do one thing and be my biggest gyro, just hit that like button down below. Assembling these suckers is pretty simple. I'm just gonna take some of our gyro meat on the side here. You can really put as much in there as you want. Then I'm going to put on a couple of tomatoes, put in some sweet onions. Try not to drop them on the floor so my dog eats them. Then I'm going to take some of our tzatziki sauce here. Now there's many ways to do this. You could add french fries in there, I've seen that. There's a lot of different options, different types of meat obviously for gyro, but we're kind of looking at something like that, which looks pretty darn good to me. All right, guys, this warm pita is calling to me and I need to chomp into this hero. This is the same tzatziki sauce I did with my Mediterranean lamb ribs recipe, and it was super good then, so I didn't really make any changes to it. But what's most important is how all the flavors come together with that ground brisket, that lamb, the sauce, and then adding in a couple of onions and tomatoes. So we really need to give it a chomp and see how we did. That was exactly what I wanted. It really was pretty much exactly what I was hoping it was going to be. Now, I've never made hero meat with brisket, and I'll be honest, it came out perfect. I mean, it's ground brisket. Of course it's gonna be great. Tzatziki sauce is great. We got a nice smoke ring coming on here. I can show you. It's a nice little pink level on the top of our hero meat. The dog is going crazy right underneath my hands right there. She wants some. And you know what, guys? You should give this a try, and you should let me know what your thoughts are. This is a different way to smoke up some different kinds of meat. It's essentially just a meatloaf, guys, but we're adding in some lamb, different flavors. As always, guys, cook something fantastic, and I will see you on the next cook. Just hit that like button down below. And I hope you like puns. Because I don't really like puns. But you gotta do what you gotta do.